Hello. Now, over the last year or so, I've done about 3 videos on the impending Zbrush for iPad release, speculating on features, UI and the pricing. And Z-Day is finally here and Zbrush is on iPad. Is it a big deal or should you stick to Nomad, Sculpt and Blender? Stick around and find out. Now, I've been playing it with it for a few hours on and off. So let's have a first look and stick around to the end for some of my thoughts on this release. So first things first, the pricing. And let's start with the bad news. There's no perpetual license for Zbrush for iPad. And who would have thunk it? This is Maxon after all. But the good news is that it's actually not too bad pricing wise. It's included for free in the recently updated pricing for the desktop version, which I guess is a bonus. I ended my subscription in April and only ever activate it on a project by project basis. But the Zbrush for iPad only pricing sits at $9.99 USD for a month and an $89.99 a year for an annual subscription, which I've got to say is reasonably affordable for a lot of us and cheaper than some TV streaming services. So I'm not too mad about that, but honestly, subscriptions, they suck. Now, there's also a stripped down free version, and that's got some serious limitations, but it'll be great for those who just want a free sculpting app that they can make doodles with, if you just want something for free to play around with. Now that that's out of the way, let's dive into it, and we'll start with the UI. So you can see this sculpt that I made on screen. It's nothing fancy, but it's, you know, it's ZBrush. And ZBrush has always been quirky when it comes to the UI, but its customizability has made up for a lot of that awkwardness. So now looking at this, it seems a lot cleaner and quite stripped back. But don't let that fool you, because this is nearly a full fat version of ZBrush. Now, the first thing that we'll look at is this guy here. You can see this. This is your little modifier control. So you can actually, with thumb press on that, or you can use keyboard shortcuts as well, right? So it's very much the same as what it was previously, right? So you can hold down all of those at the same time. So that's cool. And if you go and you press on one and drag around, you can hold down 2 at a time. So that's cool. So for example, if you wanted to, I don't know, invert like that, you can do it like that. So that's cool. And let's start, we'll go left to right. So at the top left, you can see that we've got our little thumbnail, our little silhouette. So you can see the silhouette and shape, which is a really cool feature that I've always enjoyed about ZBrush. We've got our home button, which will take us back to our main screen, a save button, import and export. Okay, and on the left we've got this bar. This will look familiar to anybody that's used ZBrush before. Okay, we've got our brushes and the keyboard shortcuts all work. So if I want to go BDS, for example, BDS, you can select things very quickly, and you can also favorite brushes. So if I go to all the brushes and I just want to, I don't know, randomly favorite this one, I can just hold down and add to the favorites. And when I go up here to my favorites, it will be in there now. Cloth hook. Let's see what that does. I haven't used that in a while. Okay, so it's like a cloth brush, like the ones in Blender. ZBrush had to catch up because Blender had that first. Okay, this one, this is our strokes. Okay, it's amazing. Okay, all the other bits and bobs. Okay, alphas, textures, materials, okay, and matte caps too. And while I'm at it, if you want to make your own matte caps, I've made an infinite matte cap generator for Blender. You can download that from Blender Market, Gumroad, and my website. So if you want to make matte caps, you can do that. The materials are great. You've got your standard, you've got your monster clay, which is great. I like to use the standard materials, okay. You've got color palette down here with modifiers and everything, so I could just fill that object with one color, or I could paint on it. We've got these functions here, right, which you can also So if I want to increase the brush size, I put 3 fingers on my screen and I can increase the brush size. So let's take the clay brush, for example, clay buildup, okay? And if I run that across there, you can see that I'm getting my clay buildup, and the harder I press, the more it does, which is great. And then if I bring my upswing really hard and just make that a little bit smaller, you can see the differences. So that's really easy to do. So I really enjoy that. Moving along, okay, so that's pretty much that side, and we can drag this anywhere we like. So if you're left-handed, you're right-handed. We've got our little head gizmo up here that you can control around. I've changed this to the skull again, as I always do, and it does have all of them in there, the skeleton and the dog and everything like that. And coming across the bottom, it's got all of these commonly used brushes, okay, so you can, you know, get your H polish out if you want to start polishing sections for like hard surface stuff and all of that. We've got Snake Hook, okay. Snake Hook obviously works with Sculptress Pro, which is like dynamic topology, so I've set that up to double tap on my pencil to turn Sculptress on and off, and we can crack into Sculptress, and obviously we can, you know, 3 fingers dragging across, I can make nice fat Sculptress like that, or I can make it taper off nice and easily. So that's really cool and fun. I love that. We've got move topological, move infinite depth, which I've never actually used, paint. Down here we've got our gizmo, so you know we can reset our gizmo. It's exactly the same as the gizmo in ZBrush for desktop, which is actually quite handy and actually quite a powerful tool overall. Okay, and excuse this model, it's not that. So we've got Dynamesh. You can see I just Dynameshed that. And if you hold down on these, you get different options. So you've got your transpose lines. You've got Dynamesh. You can see the Dynamesh settings, which is basically a voxel remesh for those who've used to Blender or other softwares like that. Yeah, that one was Dynamesh. This one is Z Remesher. So quad remesher, if you've used Nomad Sculpt or Blender, Z remesher was initially made by the person that made quad remesher. I don't know if it's exactly the same algorithm, but it's very, very similar, and it's one of the better remeshers out there. Although I have heard the one in 3D Coat is pretty good as well. So we'll turn our gizmo off, and then over here we've got subdivide. So this is your normal multi-res modifier in Blender, or multiple subdivision in thing. And the other thing is the poly count is quite performant. Now what I would notice is you may notice that the viewport's a little bit laggy when moving around. Now I don't know if that's just because I've got like this paper-like type, I've got a different product to paper-like, a better one, I can't remember what it's called, but it's better, on my screen, but it does seem to be going at like 30 frames per second for like rotating and stuff. But then let's say if I get we'll get the damn standard out, the actual brushes seem to be going at like 60 or 120, I don't know, but it's it was a little bit jarring at first. So that actually brings me to the next bit, and then over here we've got live Boolean and stuff. I won't go into that now, that's a whole nother topic. Up here we've got our history, right? So we can go, I started with a ball, let's go into side mode and we can watch the development of this whole thing go. So the history is actually really performant. This is like almost like an animation. This is awesome. I feel like it's even more performant than on my high-end PC. But anyway, there's that. Up here, we've got this palette of everything, okay? All of these different options and brushes and whatnot. Help, user manual, tutorial, ZBrush Central, so that's normal. And here we've got the settings, okay? So you can change a lot of things. Now, couple of things. Navigation, the rotation speed's like set to something really high to begin with, and the zoom speed. If I turn these back up, it just feels odd. Okay, so let's just bring these to 1. I think I prefer it at 1. I've already edited that. You can change the canvas. You can, change it to, like the gradient canvas and things like that. So if you change the gradient and all of that sort of stuff. So that's cool. I'll just leave it as, maybe we'll give it a little bit of a gradient right now. File, UI, cam view, that's how you get the skull. Press next, next, next. Let's just change it to another one. See, we've got a new guy up here. And then if I press next, there's so many of them. Next, next. What are we at? Dark color cube. Dog. Alright, let's get something cool again. There we go, back to the skull. I like the skull. Don't hate me. Okay, and then on the right hand side, we've got things like symmetry. Okay, and by the way, yeah, old keyboard shortcuts. So I can turn symmetry on and off over there, right? I can turn it off, right? Now it's only working on one side. But the default setting on the desktop version is the X button for symmetry, okay? So I can actually turn symmetry on and off with the X button on my keyboard. So that's really cool as well, that all of those original keyboard shortcuts are actually working. We've got our zoom, fill. Okay, now this one took me a little while to figure out. However, this little circle, L and F, line and fill. Okay, so line gives you wireframe. I don't know why they didn't just call it wireframe. Okay, and we've got our wireframe, as you can see. And if we go to fill, it gives us our polygroups. So that's really cool. So I'll leave the polygroups on. I'll turn the wireframe off for now. So we've got just this polygroup now. This is a non-textured mesh. So polygroups, face sets, depending on what software, they've all got a different name, but they all serve the same purpose, roughly. I don't know if they work on the same code, but they're all very similar. And then we've got rendered mode. So I'll turn the polygroups off for a second, and we'll go into rendered mode. Let it render. I've got some settings set up. Okay, so you can get all of the nice details and whatnot. So this might take a little while. Okay, and then we've got a rendered impression of this. So I don't exactly know how the renders in ZBrush work. They're definitely, I don't know if they're ray traced exactly, but they do something kind of cool. Anyway, this little guy over here opens up all of our menus. Okay, so we've got our layers, our subtools here. Okay, and down the bottom we've got, solo on. So if you rotate and you've only got multiple meshes, it only shows the active one, but obviously we can't see that right now. And we've got ghost transparency as well. Okay, so this is where you can deep dive. This is like the right hand panel on ZBrush for desktop. It's got pretty much everything in there. Now, one thing, the first video that I made about this ZBrush for iPad is I said it would be really cool if ZBrush had the Z modeler brush, and it's not there. So that's missing. And just thinking about it now, I'm sure there's a few things missing, right? And Z modeler is, but this is a 1.0 release, so maybe they've just got to work on the code for that one a little bit more. Maybe it was a bit buggy, but Z modeler would be ace, because then we would have pretty much like a full-scale poly modeler as well. But let's just stick with sculpting only for now. Now, in here we've got our tool menu, okay? And if I press this here, where is it? Hang on. Yeah, here we go. We can see the names of everything. So we've got all of these things. So we've got subtools, geometry, dynamic subdivision, edge loop, group loops, panel loops, which is really awesome for like clothes and hard surfaces, crease, shadow box, clay polish, dynamesh, as we've already seen, tessimate, Z remesher, modify topology, so you can mirror and weld things, clay polish, let's give that a go. Oh, That might have been a bit strong. So we go back over there. Where were we? Geometry, clay polish. Let's just bring that right down. Yeah, I don't like that. That's ruining it. Or maybe if we can we do 0.5 on that? No, still too much. All right, so array mesh, right? Really helpful for, once again, hard surface stuff and complicated stuff. Slime bridge, which I've never really played with, but it looks really cool. Thick skin, fiber mesh, deformation, probably one of my most used panels. Okay. Masking. Now this is where I think that this is superior to some other iPad sculpting apps, okay, because the masking tools in ZBrush are great. Visibility, polygroups, okay, you can do all the polygroup stuff, so it's got the majority of things in here. Like the main thing I've noticed that's missing is the Z modeler, but I'm pretty sure there's some other things as well, but I'll pick up on them soon. So poly paint as well, and you know, obviously you've got poly paint from poly groups and all of that stuff as well, so that's really cool. Display properties and blah blah blah. Now what's cool about this is, remember how ZBrush on desktop is really customizable. So if I'm in a menu, let's say I go into the lighting menu for my material, okay, and if you see these kind of like dots at the top, I can just drag this over, okay, and it makes a little sub menu for me over here, okay, and I can keep adding to this. So instead of having to dive deep, if I want to just say majority use I don't know, like the tool menu, okay, I can drag that over and that becomes part of this, so I don't have to dive deep every time. Although, and that being said, I've still got to go down and through all of these if I want to, and like let's say I want to do a deformation, so let's say I want to do some masking, okay, I'll just make that a bit smaller, and let's say where's my guy gone? It's over here. So let's say I mask part of my sculpt and invert it, okay? And then I want to go to deformation, right? And I want to do a balloon inflate, let's say, okay? So let's say I want to suck that in and bring it into the negative. I'm still going to go all the way down here, and these are quite far spaced apart. I'm guessing it's so that you can use your fat fingers to control it, but I use the pencil, so I wouldn't mind if I could change the spacing of this. Maybe I can. I haven't really looked into it, but there we go. And then once I'm done with that, I can just click on that again and put it away to the side. So that's nice, but we'll undo that. Okay, so that's really cool. So let's just have a little dive in and let's just play around with some of the tools and just like have a quick demo. So I'll just save this one on the way out, okay? And here we are on our home page, okay? And we've got my sculpts here, a couple of things I did. What was this? This is the first one I made, I think. Let's open it up. Okay, I was just playing around with some of the tools. That's obviously a muck around. So go home, and my sculpts, Z tools, ZBrush Central, new sculpt, down the bottom, and you can choose between any of these things. So you've got all of these base meshes that come with ZBrush that have come for a long time. The anime head, which I used to use for a long time, and some of these base meshes, and still I got other ones. And let's start with a new sculpt. Okay, so I don't know how we're going to take this one, but we'll go into the right hand side, okay, and we'll choose our move brush, okay, and we'll make it nice and big, and we'll, instead of making it hard, because if I make a hard brush, see what happens, it does this weirdness. So I'm going to make it nice and soft by taking 3 fingers to the left, okay, and we'll go to the right hand side and we'll make it even bigger, and we're just going to drag up a shape. We'll get like a I think I want to do kind of like a robot head. Let's have a look. Alrighty, so it's kind of like a human head, kind of starting to make a human head kind of shape. Let's give it a wide jaw. And just working on the iPad, like on ZBrush, it's amazing. I am using my keyboard, but I think it's much better to use a keyboard with ZBrush. And that goes for actually Nomad Sculpt and Uniform and Valence 3D and all the other iPad apps that are on the iPad. So let's take out our flattened brush and just very gently with our pen start to make some shapes. So it's very sensitive. Let's make it a bit smaller. Okay, we can actually bring that down. Just give us a bit of a softer. Let's go back a few steps. I'm going to bring that intensity down, and we can just start off soft. Okay, build up our shapes. All right, starting to get something that I kind of like here. All right, and we want this to be quite geometric, so we're just gonna build up some geometric, just flattening it out. That's the other thing, is that I usually use some like user-made brushes as well, like the orb brushes and things like that. So I haven't looked at importing brushes yet. Now that we've got our kind of shapes here, all right, I'll just do this here. I'm just going to bring that intensity or that hardness back around, and we can bring this smaller, and we can start really giving some definition to those shapes. Okay. Alrighty, and let's get the roof of this head. I'll make that nice and flat. Okay, so, and we'll do the whole side of there. And this is just like just a little exercise really. Okay, we can make that a bit bigger just to give it some more flatness. Okay, go to our menu. Okay, let's bring our tools. I've got my tools over here actually. So we've got our tools. Let's make that a bit bigger. I'm going to go down to deformation and I'm going to polish this guy. Alrighty. So, and I actually think I want to move. Let's get rid of this. I want to move and just make it a little bit. I don't really know what I'm making, so just bear with me. Okay, let's mask off an area. Hold down Control or hold down on here. Tap anywhere on the screen to invert it. Okay, and then we can go back to our tools. We can go down to deformation again, and we can come down all the way down, and we can go inflate balloon. Okay, and we're starting to get something there. We've still got our flatten brush on. Oh no, we don't. We've got our flatten, and we can flatten that off like that, and then we can hold down Control again and just drag anywhere outside. And that's the other thing, holding down Control and dragging, you can mask stuff like that. So we could then hypothetically invert that, open up here, and we could inflate balloon or on the way in. Okay, so I'm not going to do anything with polygroups or anything like that right now. Okay, and then let's bring out our dam standard. Okay, we can just give some more definition to that. All right, and just holding down Shift to smooth, or holding down here on your keyboard. If you don't have this is really handy, because if you don't have your keyboard handy or you're on the go, then that's there and it's the same. So it's pretty good. So I'm just going to smooth this off, and then we'll flatten it out again. So just like playing around, this is so much like ZBrush on the desktop in terms of like how the brushes work. Okay, and up in the settings you can change all your sensitivities, pressure sensitivity and stuff like that. So if you find it's a little bit different to your tablet that you used, then you can amend that as well. So let's just Z-remesh this to a reasonably high density. We'll just say double and Z-remesh. Okay, because we're going to go from 43 to 76. Let's do that again. It's on adaptive. Okay, and we're at 134 now, so we can really start to pump some detail in now. So we'll keep flattening that out, and we'll get these really crispy edges, okay, as you can see. So at this point, I think I would want to play around with my material. Okay, so I can see that this is the, the standard ZBrush material, but for me, I like to get a bit of mood in there and be able to see what I'm doing a bit better. So we're on a matte cap now, matte cap grey. So if we go to the standard material instead of matte caps, okay, we can go to the basic material, which is a ZBrush material, which is what you'll be using if you're wanting to do renders in ZBrush as well. So this one's a bit shiny, and I want that because that means that we can see our highlights and whatnot. So now I'm going to open up this menu, which is one of the ones from over here, okay, and it's the light menu, and I've got one light on, right? If I turn the light off, that's what happens. I'm going to turn that on. I'm actually going to change the color and the position of this light slightly, and we're going to give this one probably a warm glow, a warmer glow. Take the intensity down, up a bit. Ambient, turn the ambient down, make it a bit more moody. Okay, and then we'll make a key light as well. Right, over here. So that one's over there, that one's over here, and we'll just take the intensity of this up, and we'll give this a soft bluish twinge, and we'll just bring that right around to the front, and then we'll make one more, which will be a rim light, and we'll give that a, I don't know whether to go warm or cold on that. So as you can see, like the interface is different, but it's got all the same functions, and I actually think this is better in a lot of ways. So let's bring the intensity of that one up. Oh, that's a bit bright. I want to bring the intensity of that one reasonably low, and distance. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so we won't mess around too much, but we've got something that we can see there. And what we can also do is actually over in these ones in the render settings, we can turn on the preview AO over here, and we'll turn that on. And if we take the radius down, radius up, quality, intensity, so we've got our ambient occlusion here, blur it slightly, and depending on what you're doing, this could really help you as well. I often turn it on in Nomad when I'm sculpting as well. Okay, so this might be lagging a little bit more with that ambient occlusion on, so let's just bring the quality right down. It's like 1. Okay, that's better. Okay, so let's keep. What can we do? Let's have a little go with making a hard surface detail. So let's bring our brush size down. Okay. And this is real gammy, but if we go into our masking options under tool, okay, so masking down here, and what we can do is my hacky trick that I always do, grow mask, shrink mask, grow mask, shrink mask, sharpen, 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 grow mask, sharpen. Okay, so we've got a little bit of a sharper detail there. And then under tools, under geometry, we should, or under subtool, we should be able to, it should be extract, I believe. Is that under geometry? Oh, here we go, right at the bottom. Okay, extract. Okay. So let's extract and accept that. Okay, let's get rid of our mask. And we can now smooth that off entirely. Make our smooth brush bigger. All right. And then we can get our flatten outs. All right. So anyway, just a bit of a muck around. We can then, under Subtool, we can choose a polysphere, get rid of our, choose our polysphere and go merge down. Okay. And then we can Dynamesh it to a reasonably high resolution. And that should be all joined together. Well, that wasn't even touching, was it? Does it work on both? Yep. So, obviously, Command Z. Or you can do 2 buttons to go back. Now, I know we've been playing around. There's a lot more that I could show you, but it's, you know, stuff that you couldn't find out in other ZBrush tutorials. So this is just a sort of like a quick demo. I think it works really well. Okay. I think it's really cool software. I'm not too mad about the price. I still hate subscriptions, but I think that $10 a month is totally affordable. If you know, if we... you can paint your meshes. Now, like, a good point that I want to make is that, you know, it's worth mentioning, especially for those of you who are new to 3D and maybe just happened across this video. I think it's important that you try a lot of things and try a lot of free trials, learn a free software like Blender, understand and grasp how things work. A lot of the skills you learn in one software will be transferable to another one. And if anybody tells you there's only one way to do things and that their way is the best way, then they're either lying to you or they're not the sharpest crease brush in the palette, right? So learn what you like, learn a lot of things, figure things out, have a lot of aha moments, have eureka moments, and then hone in on those areas that you love. Because don't listen to anybody who goes, you know, the only way to do hard surface modeling is in Blender through subdivision surface and using the crease function by pressing Shift E, right? They're lying to you. So is the person that says, like, only use CAD software to do hard surfaces. Now, that being said, there are certain softwares, like ZBrush is much better at sculpting than organic stuff, but you can also do hard surface in it, right? Blender's great for poly modeling. The sculpting's there as well, but it's not as good as ZBrush, right? So the point is you can very easily do things in one software that you can't do in another software, but overall you can achieve most things in most 3D software. So whether you're using, you know, Maya for whatever reason or Blender, you can do all of this stuff. It might just take a different process or a different route to get there. So in saying that, I think that if you're used to ZBrush or you need like some hardcore tools, then this is definitely for you. But I would also say that Nomad Sculpt, which I've got some videos coming out on shortly as well, is an amazing software for sculpting, and it's got a lot of tools in there that are a lot easier to use than ZBrush, and I think it's a lot more appealing in a lot of ways. So if we look at Nomad here, I've got this here. Let's just open up a project. So yeah, something I made the other day. It took me about 5 minutes. Okay, so I made this. This is game ready. If I turn on my wireframe, right? This is a game ready asset, fully textured, fully everything done in here. So if we look at our high poly, right, turn our wireframe off, this is the high poly. And if we go into matte cap mode, you'll be able to see where is it? Let's just turn that. That's okay. This is our high poly. So as you can see, this took me about 10 minutes, right? In Nomad, right? So it's a really good software, and it's a really good alternative. Zbrush is cool as well, and it's got all of those tools, so it's a lot more functional. And look, let's just check this with the poly count. Let's see how far we can take it. It's gonna cut me off at some point, but like, let's just go. You can see the poly count up here, active points up by the thing. So let's just keep subdividing. All right, 1 million, 4 million, 16 million. Won't let me go further than that, but I have got it up to 25 million. Oh no. Let's go one more time. Okay, I've got to change the settings to do that. But look, I'm at 16 million polys, and this is still running smooth as hell. So let's just look at that. 16 million polys, and it's running super smooth. So if we go back to Nomad, let's see how many times we can subdivide this. I'm at 179k. Okay, let's go get our multi-res, subdivide. Yep. And so that let me get up to 2.85, but okay, I've got up to about 10 million in this, so I don't know why that is, but 10 million with no lag, but this is really smooth as well. So really, it's preference, but I think I'm going to continue using both, if I'm really honest. So anyway, that was a bit of a ramble. Thanks a lot for watching. I thought that because I've done so many videos on it, I might as well give a first impressions, but I'll probably do a few more videos on Zbrush for iPad, I would say, as well as Nomad Sculpt and Uniform. I'm all about using 3D apps on a tablet because it's portable. You could do it if you were homeless, right? So it's amazing as long as you had an iPad, right? So I'll see you guys all in the next one. Cheers.